who broke that story for Time magazine about what senior intelligence official calls President Trump's willful ignorance that apparently cannot be overcome by our most sophisticated intelligence analysts. Also with us, Chris Whipple. He literally wrote the book on how a White House is supposed to be run. It's called The Gatekeepers, How the White House Chiefs of Staff Define Every Presidency. And we're joined by Mika Oyang, who knows the value of intelligence briefings from her years of experience on the staff of the Intelligence Committee of the House of Representatives. John Walcott, I want to start with you. And the sources you're using here are people who, some of them, are people who've actually been in the room briefing the president. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they are telling you that, among other things, they have to try to reduce it to a couple of sentences, that there's an attention span issue. What other challenges do they face in that room?
Well, certainly there's an attention span issue. I think all of us know that from various sources. Second, there's a problem of getting a president up to speed who has very little experience in foreign affairs. That's not unique to President Trump. Other presidents, including President Obama, have come into office without deep experience in foreign policy. That brings us to the third difference, which is the stubborn disregard for anything he disagrees with. And we've seen that in the intelligence briefings, and we've also seen it on the outside. He tends to reject opinions and analysis that conflicts with his own opinions and beliefs.
And Chris Whipple, you've spoken to people in the Trump White House as well as the Obama White House. I think in your experience, it's impossible to compare Donald Trump's ignorance to any other president who's preceded him.
No, it's true. I mean, he's in a class of his own, as we know. And, you know, we've had 3 White House chiefs of staff under Donald Trump who were all of them unable to tell the president what he did not want to hear. And now, according to John in his terrific story, it's the intelligence briefers. And in a way, that's even more disturbing than it is with the White House chiefs. Because you think about it, these guys are the last line of defense. They are the thin line between the president and his own delusions and really his own fantasy land. This is a president for whom discipline and process are anathema. And in a crisis, that way lies disaster.
And Mika Oyang, President Obama, for example, served on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Donald Trump, there's no evidence that he's ever even read an article about any of the subjects that presidents have to deal with on a daily basis. There was certainly no evidence that he'd read any New York Times article or Washington Post article or any basic reporting when he was in presidential debates leading up to election night. And so the ignorance we knew about, the willful ignorance that John Walcott is describing, is something we could only have gotten from the inside.
That's right. And it's very frustrating. You think that the intelligence communities have been presenting intelligence briefings to the presidents even before they were sworn in as candidates. At a certain point, both candidates receive daily intelligence briefings in case one of them wins, so they understand what's going on in the world. And what you see with Trump is that he has not been interested in understanding the way the world works. He does not ask follow-up questions about the consequences of the courses of action that he's going to take. And so you see the world not reacting the way that he wants to this world that he is trying to invent.
And John Walcott, you have briefers telling you that they have been warned, as you report, they've been warned to avoid giving the president intelligence assessments that contradict stances he has taken in public. What do those briefers then do when they have information that contradicts the president?
Well, they have a very difficult decision to make. The warning is that if you tell him things that he's publicly disagreed with or taken a different stance on, you're in danger of losing your access to him. He doesn't want to hear from you anymore. So the tough decision that all these people face, and that the chiefs of the intelligence services faced when they testified last week on the Hill, is, do I tell it straight, or do I try to maintain my access to this guy? Jim Mattis at Defense had that problem. John Kelly and H.R. McMaster had that problem. And where are they now?
But, John, on the intelligence briefers, would they just be replaced if an intelligence briefer tells President Trump something that he doesn't want to hear, and then maybe does it repeatedly a couple of times? Would that briefer just be replaced by another briefer, or would the briefings just stop?
For the most part, Lawrence, the briefings have stopped. The president doesn't take them, unlike President Obama, who took home 3-inch thick notebooks at night. The president doesn't read them, often doesn't take them. The National Security Advisor, John Bolton, takes some of them. Vice President Pence has taken some of them. He simply ignores them.
Mika Oyang, what is the president missing by not taking that homework home with him that Barack Obama took home every night?
He's missing how the world works. He's missing the kinds of facts that he would need to make wise decisions to guide the nation. He's missing the reactions of our allies. He's missing the strength of our enemies. He's missing the way the rest of the world works and how the U.S. economy is affected by that, and how Americans could be at risk all over the world. He is not interested in understanding the details of the complexity of the world and the threats arrayed against America. And that's actually very troubling. And this is why I think you see these intelligence briefers coming forward now to warn us of the president's danger when he so publicly disagreed with the intelligence assessments after their presentation in Congress.
Chris Whipple, John's extraordinary reporting reveals an episode in which the president was being briefed on something, and it involved islands in the Indian Ocean that are strategically crucial. And the president's only question about it was, about those islands, are the people nice and are the beaches good? Is that something you found in your study of past presidencies?
No, I have to say I've never seen anything like that. And, you know, we're used to throwing around adjectives like unprecedented and never heard of before, and that's certainly the case here. You know, at the end of the day, if the president is unwilling to hear hard truths from his intelligence briefers, you know, the other two people who have to step up and become the honest brokers of information are the National Security Advisor and the White House Chief of Staff. Now, I don't think anybody expects John Bolton to be an honest broker. We know that he's a real ideologue. So then it lands on the White House Chief of Staff. But at the end of the day, as I'm sure anyone would tell you at the CIA, it's really only the intelligence community that can give him that raw data and that analysis that he needs to understand the world.
And John Walcott, your reporting follows a week in which the president publicly attacked the leaders and presumably everyone working in the intelligence community, saying that they are wrong. Those were his words after they testified publicly about the threat assessment worldwide to the United States. He also said they should go back to school, and that was apparently aimed at everyone in the intelligence community. You then present this leaked story from the intelligence community this weekend. Is that sequence part of what provoked these leaks?
There's no question about it, but the sequence actually started very early in the presidency when President Trump went out to CIA headquarters, stood in front of the wall of stars that commemorates intelligence officers who have fallen in the line of duty, and talked about himself and his inauguration. But I think it really started to crack open with two things. One, when he publicly sided with Russian President Putin against the intelligence community, and two, when the former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson came out and talked about some of the same qualities that are in that article. And then the last straw, if you want to put it that way, was his knockdown of the intelligence community and the suggestion that they should go back to school, to which one of the officials off the record replied, he ought to go to school.
It makes a lot of sense. Chris Whipple, in your study of presidencies, have you ever seen schedules like what was leaked about President Trump's schedule now? And I'm not counting FDR when he was dying. I'm not counting Woodrow Wilson when he was physically incapacitated. I'm talking about physically capable presidents who spent as much leisure time during the workday as Donald Trump.
No, nothing like it. And, you know, even Ronald Reagan, who was famously detached as president, would show up, at 9 o'clock sharp in the Oval Office every day, and he would hit his marks as long as he had a good director like Jim Baker around. So it's unprecedented. But both of these stories, John's story on the intel briefings, the story of Donald Trump's unbelievable quote-unquote executive time, are a reminder of something that we've known for a while, but I think this is chilling confirmation of it. That is that this White House is full of people who are not only incompetent at governing, but many of them are, profoundly uninterested in governing. Dennis McDonough on the first day, January 20th, 2017, sat at his office and waited for the chief of staff to arrive, and no one showed up. He gave up, he turned off the lights, and he left the White House. And, not very much has changed, you could argue. And here's Donald Trump with his executive time.
John Walcott, thank you very much for joining us with your exclusive reporting tonight on the president's willful ignorance, as the intelligence officials call it. And Chris Whipple, Mika Oyang, thank you for helping us start it off tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below.